Hello everyone. I'm so glad to be back. I wish I could be here more often. This is the first chance I've had since probably 5 days ago, and I want to welcome you to Homemaking Radio, the purpose being that you'll have something to listen to while you work. And I like it when you jot down a little note in the comments and let me know what all you did while you were listening, because it's a good testimony and good teaching and a good influence on those that are a bit lost and wondering, what am I going to do at home? And in the olden days, we used to listen to the radio while we were washing dishes or doing the laundry. And in those days, it was more of a tedious task. Remember, we used to put the wash through the wringer, and it would land in the rinse water on the other side, and then you had to move the wringer and put it back through in another bucket, and then you hung it out. But we listened to radio, and so that's why I thought it might be nice to have something to listen to while you work or rest. And I know some of you just fall asleep, but that's okay too. It just makes it more useful. And so I'm Mrs. Sherman, and I'm broadcasting from the manse. And I also hope to include some pictures from my life around here. And so if you are new here, please click the link in the description box on the channel and go to the post on which I have placed these videos, and click on my header, and you'll get all of the posts from forever, and go through and listen. There is a playlist, and it will just go on to the previous ones, and you can catch up if you want to. And today I have some grim things to talk about. I hope it doesn't sound too unfriendly, but I'm going to start out with getting yourself dressed and ready. And as I was getting ready today, it seems to take me longer the older I get, because it doesn't come as natural. Some of you young ones can hop out of bed and not even bother to wash your face or comb your hair, and you just look gorgeous all the time because you've got youth on your side, the bloom of youth. And so I was thinking while I was getting ready today that one of the best and probably first things I had ever read about feminine appearance, or just getting ready in your appearance, was from Helen Andolin's book, The Fascinating Girl. And I was a teenager at the time, and I was reading that, and she had an excellent chapter on feminine dress. And I don't have it with me right now. There's all kinds of negative stuff going on about fascinating girl, fascinating womanhood, but it was the best we had at the time. It was a classic. It was absolute classic. And there have been people that have plagiarized those two books and written new books on the same subjects, and just put their own religion in it. But I like to go back to the old one. I don't have a copy with me. I'll just from memory tell you some of the things that I learned that stuck in my mind. And that is that getting dressed in a pretty dress or a skirt does not make you more refined. It does not make you more feminine if it's not accompanied by the feminine ways and manners. If you're clomping about, being rude, being loud, being pushy and boisterous and domineering, and screeching and hollering, and just being rude. You know, I talked about the rudeness of hasty, sharp replies, snapping at people all the time. Then wearing a dress absolutely doesn't do it. And I think that might be one reason why in our era so many men, they're quite they don't like their women to wear feminine clothing, because it probably doesn't jive with their personalities or something like that, and they want their women to be real tough, and so wearing a dress, they wouldn't like that. But and I find that here, that there were some younger men that were quite mocking of some girls that were wearing dresses one day, and I thought, I wonder where that's coming from. If you know anything about that, let me know. That never would have happened back in the olden days. But we are in an era where people are quite mixed up. So if you can get a copy of The Fascinating Girl, it was for single girls, and it was to train them and teach them on the very things that was their manners, their feminine dress, their housekeeping abilities, things that would help them in their homes when they did get married, and show them the mistakes that they were making that were preventing them from meeting someone things that drive people away, the things that, and it's for all of us really, because it's great to understand that those things that drive away a potential mate could also be good for us, because we could be driving away family members with poor manners. And so today, after I get finished talking about a few other things, I want to talk a little bit about some of these. Like I said, I have some grim things to talk about. But first, just do your best with your appearance. See, appearance, before you learn all the how to be refined and manners and in the home and how to run the home, the easiest thing, the quickest thing to change is your clothes. So that's why I think that's a start. Even if you haven't quite got the movements and the manners and she mentioned in this book, there's no use wearing, she called it bears in lace. And she had a little cartoon character of a bear dressed in a tutu or something. And she mentioned that, if you're wearing a dress and you're just kind of flopping down on the chair and you don't have any graces at all, that it just didn't do any good. It just spoiled the look. And, I have mentioned too, women who, they're very pretty, they have beautiful hair and a nice figure and everything, but the minute they open their mouth, they spoil the whole thing because they're crude. And so we're not crude, and we don't swear, and we don't read bad material or anything, but we have to be careful even now to be kind and to make the words of our mouth, I would say, palatable, eatable. What was that poem years ago? I'm careful of the words I say, because I'll try to put it in the post. See, this is why you need to go to the post and listen to the video there, because I'll embed it there, and there'll be all the things that I said. I will summarize it and sometimes include some of the other things. And one of them was, I'm careful about the words I say, because I never know from day to day which ones I'll have to keep them nice and sweet, because I never know from day to day which ones I'll have to eat. Do you remember that one, that old one? So now I wanted to talk a little bit about homemaking, because I know people have asked me about hospitality, food preparation, and things like that, but you can find a lot of that on YouTube and on the web and on Pinterest, ideas and how to store food. But I will tell you the truth, the reason that I won't talk about food storage, food preparation, company coming quickly and stuff, is because I'm always out of food. I have so much commotion around here and in my kitchen, and there's people coming in and out, and so I'm always low on food. It is nothing to go to the grocery store 2 or 3 times a week, fill up the fridge and the pantry, and for it all to be gone. But when you have a big family around you, that is the way it is. There will be times in the winter when I'll have a better storage, because people can't get here as easily in the winter. So then I'll have food. But sometimes someone will call me and they'll want to drop by for tea. They know that I'm good for a serious cup of tea, but I'll be honest with them. I'll say, look, I'm just, my cupboard is bare. Could you stop by and get this and get that and everything? And they don't mind doing it, and I'll give them a little money if they'll take it. So we've worked it out, so that is why I can't give you any hints or anything, but you can find them. There's plenty of, and I don't include recipes or food techniques, cooking techniques, because they're so available. There's so many how do-it-yourself, how to, step-by-step stuff on the YouTube, on Pinterest, on everything, that you can find things for yourself. And I am just here to talk. So, and I was going to read you a few things too today. So for homemaking, I have just had 2 full days of different batches of types of company coming in, and in one day I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4 different groups come in, because summer is like a drop-by type of, they'd be driving by and they drop in, and by the end of the day my house was an absolute wreck, because I didn't feel like cleaning it up before I went to bed. I was pretty tired. And so now I can tell you I have staged everything you see in this video. The rest of it's total wreck. But I mean, there's room for someone to sit if they want to move some stuff over. But it's pretty used, and but I knew that if I stopped and cleaned it all up, I wouldn't be here for days. So I wanted to come and talk to you. And this reminds me, I don't know if I can still find it, but there was a verse here from somewhere that said, some people like me to write on my blog page, give them something to read. But I found out that it's harder for a hater to paste it if I speak it instead. They can just embed my video and then they can learn something, but they don't get to misrepresent me quite as much. So, and also writing is very time consuming and hard. So I'd rather just talk to you. But this is the final greeting in 3rd John. I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. So I feel like what I'm doing is scriptural. So, ladies, now, as far as homemaking goes, what I think that is important to me is that getting dressed, that just sets the tone, and that just settles my mind, so then I can concentrate on what needs to be done. And if I can, I'll start with the room closest to the front door, the entryway, because that is ultimately what someone's going to see first, and then I can sit them down there. They can be seated while I rush into the kitchen and clean up, or while I rush into the bathroom, if it comes to that. But then I will do the bathroom and the kitchen and leave all the bedrooms till last, because I can always close the door if I have to. But of course, I think for your own comfort, you should do it according to the way you like it. Now, some people liked Fly Lady a lot and got on that schedule and learned how to run a home on that. You can, I think I have it on a link of it on my sidebar called Fly Lady, and some people liked it because it was a schedule they could follow, where if it was a week for the living room and you didn't get it done, you'd pick it up the next time around, because she would have 1 week for one thing and 1 week for the other, and she divided into different things for different days. And some people found great success with that. Ultimately, everybody finds their own way, because it depends on how they live. You'll find that you'll start doing things that need to be done when they need to be done, or before, because you start anticipating it. But this is not to tell you how, because you can find out many things about homemaking, and my ways might not exactly suit you, because the life I lead might be slightly different, and your family might have a different schedule. And so I am just here to read to you and talk to you while you work, and I hope that it will be of some benefit to you. And I have been reading out of this book, Winsome Womanhood, by Margaret Elizabeth Sangster, 1900, and it was revised by Shelley Noonan and turned into kind of a journal edition. So what I'm doing is I am reading the original parts written by Margaret herself. It's not Margaret Sanger, it's Margaret Sangster, Margaret Elizabeth Sangster. Beautiful quotes by her. And she has called this A Daughter at Home, and I'm enjoying reading this, and wish that I had had this when I was daughter at home, or that someone knew about the needs of a daughter at home back in the old days. A Daughter at Home, a rosebud set with little wilful thorns. Not every household in the land has its darling ministering daughter, but no household is complete without one. Into what need of the hour does she not enter? Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? What longing of the heart does she not fill? This dear young girl repeats in face and form the sweetness of the mother's past, and in gesture, pose, and accent is a feminine copy of her father, the Princess Royal, wherever we find her. I took a beautiful photograph of my granddaughter sitting outside in a lawn chair listening to her father talk to her. I don't know what they were talking about, but he was doing all this gesturing and stuff the way he was working on a sermon, because he had been asked to deliver it at some little congregation when he came into town. And he isn't a full-time preacher, but he was working on this, and she had asked him something about it, and he was explaining it to her, and I took the most beautiful picture. It could be a painting. It was so pretty, and such a beautiful contrast with this older, the father sitting there talking to the daughter, and she's just listening to him. And the thing is, if your daughter grows up around adult conversation in the home that's good and intellectual, she will never develop a peer dependency and develop a pure language, I was noticing, being around some other people not long ago, that some of the young people had developed a way of talking so that the adults could not hear them. And they get real close to somebody their age and say something, and you could be standing right next to them and not understand a word of it. I think that's pretty devious and sneaky, in my opinion. Have you ever had that happen to you? Well, let's continue about this girl at home. She becomes all the lovelier if she is gently guided. And I have noticed this, a young girl, to be scolded is harsher. It sounds harsher to her than you intended it. You have to figure out ways to say things that are corrective without making her feel that she's been scolded. Encourage her not to be too subdued and restrained, as the charm of the rose is enhanced by its shielding briars. It is permitted for the daughter of the house to have her own way sometimes. If she notices alterations that could be done to make the house run more smoothly, then make it. If she desires innovations, her family sanctions them. Finally, the happy day of her people, from the grandparents down, are devoted to her. And it talks about how if she's nice, if she's pleasing, if she's polite, people will actually give her a lot more of what she wants. And it says, now in the old days, back in the Victorian times when this was written, when girls grew up, they let down their hems longer, down to their ankles, and they put their hair up. Little girls had their hair down and their hems higher, I suppose, so they could run and play. But so this is what this is describing right here. The mother in her chair of state is not often ready to abdicate merely because her little girl has let down her frocks and put up her hair. Dear mother prefers yet to keep the house in person and delegates only a small amount to her daughter. But in portions of the homemaking, the girl naturally takes part, and especially is she in evidence in the home's hospitalities. Listen to this. She pours tea at 5 o'clock for her friends, who informally call, and when the family has guests for supper, she is there to help entertain the children. The small and graceful courtesies, never obtrusive, but always appreciated, which add so much to a visitor's pleasure. The fresh towels in the guest chamber, the flowers renewed in bowl and vase, the bric-a-brac dusted, the slippers ready for father's tired feet, the cushion softly interposed as a moment when mother's back begins to ache, the prompting word which enables an aunt to tell her favorite story, the needles ready threaded for grandmother, whose little cares are within the province of the daughter's house. At this age, she is learning tact. And this is something that I thought that I might like to talk about in the people part later on. Hers is the happy knack of making people satisfied with themselves. The dear girl of 15 can serve and be served by others in the family because she requests and does not order, and is unstinted in her pleasant return of thanks for their kindness. So I like this phrase. She requests, not orders, and is unstinted in her pleasant return of thanks for their kindnesses. She's very easy. She thanks very easily. It comes easily off of her tongue. Thank yous. The correspondence, she writes, are examples that she knows what to say. In honeyed phrases which commend her tact and discretion, she communicates to others. I am not surprised to find that, like Elizabeth Barrett Browning's heroine in a familiar poem, 'tis her thinking of others makes you think of her, for the daughter of the house is truly an altruist. Her father is proud of her growing beauty and quick wit and her accomplishments. The bond uniting father and daughter is very subtle. It implies loyalty on one side and courtesy on the other, and there is little in reason which he can deny her, while she instinctively asks for what she wants. The two have much in common. They like the same amusements, they enjoy the same books, and when they all go on a journey together, the father's attentions are all clear for all to see. Some skill should be developed by the girl in amateur nursing, for there are often occasions which she may be called on to care for illness and soothe an invalid. I am supposing that our girl herself is well, as every young woman should be, and that she prizes her health so that she does not foolishly withdraw her reserves. I nursed my mother through 2 years of intense suffering, said a daughter, and I was often with her at night as well in daytime, but I did not break down. I exercised regularly and took what rest I could, and I kept cheerful for her sakes. Lessons on first aid to the injured are beyond price, showing a girl what to do and how to do it in case of emergency, when a person has been burned or cut or faints or is wounded or maimed by an accident. So this was written in 1900, and they had knowledge of first aid. I grew up on a homestead in Alaska, and all those families up there had knowledge of personal care for first aid. And the thing that I noticed about reading this was, and I'm reading from Winsome Womanhood by Shelley Noonan, by Margaret Sangster, Margaret Elizabeth Sangster, was she said, I was often with, like her mother, she nursed her when she was sick. I was often with her at night, as in the daytime I did not break down. I exercised regularly and took the rest I could and kept cheerful for her sake. That is so important, that even though I've had a lot of company, I've had to go close the door in my room and do my 5-minute stretch exercises and any other routine I had. Drinking my my cup of herbal tea, my rest, taking a rest, and prayer, and getting myself ready, because it's very easy to run yourself ragged when there are people around. And that way, when they leave, you don't have to just get in a chair and feel totally wiped out and exhausted. If you can keep your little routine going. I had an aunt, and she had a farmhouse, and we would visit it sometimes, and she just disappeared now and then. She wasn't with the family all the time, talking to everybody all the time. She would disappear, and she would go take a nap, or she would disappear and she would be found in her room doing whatever she needed to revive herself. And I think a homemaker needs to do that. That's what they used to do, is go to the mirror every now and then, take a break, go to the mirror, wash their hands and face, recomb their hair, take a look in the mirror, and just get their bearings back. And that way, like she said in this article here that I just read to you, she said, I was often with her, but I did not break down. I exercised regularly and took what rest I could and kept cheerful for her sake. So I had a book I liked to read and to relax me, and I had all my things around me, and that way I could still live kind of a normal balance, so I could balance my brain, because you can get quite thinned out. You can feel quite thin mentally with a lot of things going on in your life. So now I'm going to read for you from Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, written in, and I should have this memorized by now, as to what year it was written. One thing you have to be careful of is any of these books you get which are reprints and they're brand new, is they have an editor that writes a long introduction and just spoils the whole story by assuming that it was done for this reason or that reason. And one of the books that I had years ago that I told you about, it was the American Boy's Handy Book that was a precursor to the Boy Scout book. And it was a really nice book from the 1800s, but it had been reprinted and some editor had printed about 10 pages in it, and it was awful, just awful, trying to explain what boyhood was all about, instead of just talking about how important it was to learn how to build a bridge or build a tent. This guy went into this horrible philosophy which makes you understand why some of these organizations came to nothing. You just have to be careful of these introductions. They're not written by the author. So, Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, and I assume it was around 1890. That's what I'm thinking. It's not in the front here as to what year she actually wrote it, but I assume it was probably in the 1890s. It was after Jane Austen. I don't know, maybe it was 100 years after Jane Austen. So, because the introduction that was written by the one that published it, republished it, he just went on and on about class. And of course we know that it's in here that there were different kinds of people. As a matter of fact, today, if I get time, I'm going to read to you about the ladies' maid during the Jane Austen time, and I think that you might even identify with it, because it sounds a lot like the modern homemaker, some of their duties. And it was saying that they were on duty all the time, and you know, even, and it's the same with us, even if we take a rest, we know we're on duty, we're available to help somebody in our home, and to keep the home and to guard it. So I had been reading from you in Wives and Daughters, and the story is of Molly, the young, we see her as a young girl, maybe 7 or 8. She's found sitting under a tree, fallen asleep at Lady, I'm thinking it's Cumnor was her name, party, a rich lady in the area where her father, where Molly's father, Dr. Gibson, had his practice, and she was one of his patients, or you know, someone that he dropped in on and checked on, and she always had a yearly party for children, and I don't know where these children came from, but I suppose many of them were orphans, and Molly was motherless, and she was invited too. And so we find her in the first scene of this story under a tree, fallen asleep. And throughout this story, I noticed that she was often asleep near a tree, or crying under a tree, or something like that, which factored in largely in this story. And she has a family, there's a family nearby called the Hamleys. They have 2 sons near her age, near Molly's age, and as Molly is getting older and she turns 17, her father allows her to go take care of Mrs. Hamley, who has been sick. And Mr. Hamley likes her a lot too. And the 2 boys, Roger and Osborne, are so fond of her too. And she's part of the family. So I've come to the part where her father informs her that she's getting married, and how this grieved her. This just hit her really hard. And Roger finds her crying on a park bench on their property. And he said, he explains about a girl he once knew, that they had a good relationship. She had a good relationship with her father too. And at 17, her father remarried, but the girl went alongside and just helped her new mother and helped the home, and was very happy for her father. But Molly, of course, is not right there yet. It says her poor wistful eyes were filling with tears as they met his, with a dumb appeal for sympathy. Her look was much more eloquent than her words. There was a momentary pause before he replied, and then it was more because he felt he must say something than that he was in any doubt to the answer of the question. He said, "You are sorry for it?" She said, "Yes." And he said, "It seems like it must almost be a duty for a man to find someone to substitute for the mother," he told her, "and that this step may be greatly for your father's happiness. It may relieve him from some many cares. It may give him a pleasant companion." And she said, "He had me. You don't know what we were to each other." Still, he must have thought it was for the best, or he wouldn't have done it. He may have thought it was the best for your sake even more than for his own. And so he starts talking to her, and she sort of gets a hold of herself after that. She's crying the whole time he's talking to her. Roger did not want to hear Molly's reasons for this doubting speech. He felt as if he had no right to hear more of Mr. Gibson's family life than was absolutely necessary for him, in order that he might comfort and help this poor crying girl whom he had come upon so unexpectedly. And besides, he wanted to go home to be with his mother at lunchtime, yet he could not leave her alone. He said, "It is right to hope for the best about everybody, and not to expect the worst." Now, if you watch the movie Wives and Daughters, you see this scene where he comes along and she's crying, and they finally both stand up together to go to lunch, and you can hear, if you turn the volume up, you can hear him say these words, but you can't actually, it's not very audible in the actual movie. But as they walk down the path into the distance, he says, "It is right to hope for the best about everybody." He said it's best to think well of everyone and not to expect the worst. One always tries to think more of others than of oneself, and it is best not to prejudge people on the bad side. You can hear him say that. "My sermons aren't long, are they? Have they given you an appetite for lunch? Sermons always make me hungry, I know." He appeared to be waiting for her to get up and come along with him, as indeed he was, but he meant her to perceive that he should not leave her. So she rose up, too languid to say how much she should prefer being left alone, if he would only go away without her. She was very weak and stumbled over the straggling root of a tree that projected across the path. He, watchful though silent, saw this stumble, and putting his hand, held her up from falling. He still held her hand when the occasion was past. This little physical failure impressed on his heart how young and helpless she was, and he yearned to remember the sorrow in which he had found her, and longing to be of some bit of comfort to her before they parted. He did not know what to say. "You will have thought me hard on you," he burst out at length, as they were nearing the drawing-room windows and garden door. "I can never manage to express what I feel. Somehow I always fall into philosophizing. But I am sorry for you. Yes, I am. It's beyond my power to help you as far as altering facts goes, but I can feel for you in a way which it's best not to talk about, for it can do no good. Remember how sorry I am for you. I shall be thinking of you, though I dare say it's best not to talk about it again." You can see all that in the movie. They include that in the script, which is very good. And now I have about 30 minutes left, so I'm just going to talk ad lib about one of these grim courtesy problems. And maybe you have not experienced this, but I have, because I've had people around me. We've been discussing various things, and several people have mentioned this problem of people cornering them. In other words, they get them in a situation where they are standing in front of them and cornering them and forcing them to either listen to them or make a decision or answer questions or something. And they have blocked off other people around them. They've somehow wedged themselves between maybe a grandmother and her daughter, or two sisters, or even a even a father and a son or something, or just anybody, another adult, and just block them, and they can't get around them to go out the door or to go talk to somebody else, and they can monopolize a person, an entire social gathering, and monopolize one person just by, they call them the cornerists. It's now on the web as a serious habit that people have, and I think it's called the cornerists. You can find that on the web. There are people that feel that the only way they can get their point across or get what they need from someone is to corner them. And what it means is, if you know what it's like in a corner, it's like this, and there's no door, there's no way out. So they get them in a place in a room where they can't get out and around. And other people feel, if you've been cornered, you feel guilty for not wanting to be cornered. You feel guilty. You feel like you've been rude to that person if you don't want to be cornered, if you want out, if you want to get out. And it's very hard to escape them without offending them. And so we've been discussing this with various friends, and I realized, yes, I've been cornered, and what to do about it, because a lot of these people don't know they're doing it, or that's their habit and it works for them. They get what they want. They get a commitment, or they get to do something, or they get to get the person to agree to something or listen to something, and that's the way they have done it all their lives, and that's the way they're still doing it. If I were to do an etiquette class for someone, we would have some of the class members come up, and we'd work up a little skit and show how that's done, and then talk about how to politely get out of it. Because I was talking to one lady who said that she got cornered, and her family was waiting for her, I guess, in the car, and somehow she didn't make it out the door because this woman cornered her. And so when she got out to the car, somebody said, well, why didn't you tell her you had to go? She said, well, I couldn't say I didn't want to talk to her. So here's part of the problem. You assume that when you say something it's going to be offensive, but you don't say, I don't want to talk to you. That would be rude. But somehow people think that if they try to get out of it, they are telling that person, I don't like you, I don't want to talk to you. But you don't say, I don't want to talk to you. You say, excuse me, please, I have to go. And if you've ever tried to get away from a cornerist, this is the problem. Have you ever successfully gotten away from somebody that wanted to talk to you and you just didn't want to hear about it? You walk fast, don't you? You circumvent them. You walk fast, you get in the door, and you run to wherever you are. You don't want to talk to them because you know what they're going to talk about, and you get away from them quite easily. But the cornerist people have a stun effect on people. I don't know if it's their eyes or what, but they tend to stun the people that they have cornered, and they forget all about how they were able to outrun somebody to get away from them, or avoid someone else that they didn't want to talk to, or tell somebody else, I don't have time for this, I've got to go. Somehow the cornerist has got some kind of effect on a person's mind, and you can't get away from them. And I saw someone do that to a visiting preacher one time. He was a guest speaker, and he had a wonderful message, and afterwards a woman went up to him, and she was the cornerist of the congregation. This is years ago. We called her the cornerist. She monopolized him because he was not familiar with her tactics, and so he just wanted to be polite. She monopolized him so much that not one other person in the congregation got to speak to him or shake his hand. They finally gave up, walked out the door, and went home. And she monopolized him the whole time. She was kind to him and everything, but she stood in such a way. What they do, and talking to these other people that have experience, they tend to block out other people so that you have to kind of look over their back and get the attention of the person that you want to rescue to come out. It's time for us to go home. Let's go. and then they will move. They'll block you this way and they'll block you that way. And I had another lady tell me that it happened once to one of her children. I don't know how old the child was, but when she went in, when she saw this woman cornering a child, she went in to be near her child, and the woman just kind of gently edged her out away from her own child. Now, I know what it's like as an adult. I don't know what it's like for people to do that to other people's children, but I wonder if this is a problem that's coming up on us, or if it always has happened. These corner people, these people that corner you. It doesn't actually have to be a corner, but we have to understand about corners. You know, you hear about don't paint yourself into a corner. If you paint the floor and you end up in a corner, there's nowhere to walk out of it. And that's where we get the corner, you know, the expression cornering someone. There's nowhere to go unless there's a door there in the corner. And so you don't want to be cornered. So let's think of some ways that you can get away from the cornerists without creating a big stir. And without creating, one thing is look over their head or their shoulder and say, oh, I see, someone's calling me, I have to go. It was nice to talk to you. Bye. And just keep going. Now they are very aggressive people. They really are. They will do everything they can to block you from going. And I have seen it happen. Years ago, I saw it happen at one of our tea fellowships we had. It was just tea. There was no program or anything. We were just having tea, and ladies came, and we just had a wonderful time. But one lady was not letting someone out the door when she needed to go, and she had her pan of goodies that she had brought, and she was standing at the door with her handbag on one hand, and she was trying to get out. And so finally someone noticed it and walked around the cornerist and opened the door for her and said, were you trying to get home? Were you trying to get going? And sometimes these cornerists themselves have someone waiting for them outside wherever you are, parked in a hot parking lot or in miserable weather, waiting for this person. And often the cornerist is a lady. It sometimes is men. There, you'll get a man every now and then that will do it, but mostly I've seen it with women, and they have no sense of time. Time means nothing to them. They have no sense of time. When they get to talking, they have no sense of authority, someone else's authority. A mother could come through and say, I need for my daughter to come now. Reach over to get her daughter, and the woman will just keep talking and talking, and their eyes somehow have mesmerized these poor people. And so there are ways around this. Another way is just to walk away, because they don't notice. They will keep talking, and the cornerist has no sense of politeness or obligation to anyone. They will let their husbands or sons that are waiting for them, maybe that came with them or were waiting for them, even at home, waiting at home, to go somewhere else or need them to be home. They have no sense of propriety in that way, and they will corner somebody and just talk to them till they get good and ready not to talk anymore, and it can be a long time. And we have had them occasionally over the years. And I remember one preacher, he was just waiting to it was his job to lock up the building. Sometimes in these small country congregations, that's what the preacher has to do. It was his job to turn off the lights, turn down the heat, and lock up the building. And there was a cornerist in there, had cornered someone else, and he was such a polite man. He did not have the skill, or he did not understand how to get them out. So he finally turned off all the lights, and that kind of triggered the cornerist, but not really. They really don't get the message very well. But you don't have to say anything rude. You don't have to say, I don't want to talk anymore. You just say, excuse me, I have to go. And you may have to just talk over them talking, because if you wait for a break, there won't be a break. The other thing you can do is look around and find out if there is a way around this person. You gather up your things and you go around, or you go to another room, and then when you see them move away from the door, you make a a beeline for the door. There are just, if we were doing a skit, we would have a lot of fun with a skit on this cornerist thing. I'm sure there probably is one. I believe that some of the old sitcoms dealt with the cornerist, the people that corner you, and how to get out of the corner. And it kept society in check, I think, in a way, when we had those old sitcoms that showed these people, these thoughtless people, and turned it into a comedy. And so then let's move on to something else here. I wanted to talk a little bit about this modern thing of everybody having a ministry, and I've run into that several times, and the problem with it is it never seems to be a ministry of the home. You know, we already have a ministry, and that is to take care of our home, to guide the home, to guard it, to guard the people in it. Big responsibility there. But I have over the years run into people who had a private ministry where they thought they were using their talents, but you get so many of them, and they all have a ministry, and they have no room for anybody else's ministry, and they can particularly distract the homemaker, because they feel that if you're home and you're a homemaker and don't have any like set in stone obligations, like appointment type things, that you can go to participate in their ministry. And once they start something like a ministry, like classes or some kind of charity or anything else, they've got to have people to come to fill their class or to make the ministry work, successful. And so it's the same as the cornerist. You have to figure out how to politely get by without saying something rude to them. You don't have to say, I don't want to do that. You can if you want to. But you can say, I'm just so busy with my own ministry. Would you like to join me in my ministry? You'll find that these people that have ministries, they don't tolerate anybody else's ministry. They're just, they don't understand that your home can be a ministry. They think that if you have even a ladies' Bible study or something, that you should be doing something social, something else. But a lot of times people come to these ladies' fellowships once a week, especially out here in the country. It's just a chance to get away from the hard work of the farms for a little while and to have a day out or an hour out for themselves, to revive themselves. And that's all it is. But some people don't think that women should just be home. Even if they're resting, they can be involved in ministry. And I know a lot of the single women in ministries conduct their ministries in the evenings and at night. And it's always such a shock when they invite some of the older women, and the women say, I don't go anywhere at night. I used to listen to that too when I was younger. Women say, I never drive at night. I never go out at night. And somebody told me a joke about that one time, but I've totally forgotten it, about who should be out at night and who shouldn't. And so sometimes young people, they've got beautiful cars and they have freedom, and they want to do things in the evening for some reason, and they don't understand that some people just don't want to go out for the evening. Plus, we have families. We don't want to leave our families in the evening. And do you remember, ladies, back in the day when they had all these selling businesses going around? There was Tupperware and home interiors and one thing after. There were a lot of them. And women, even in the church, were gone in the evenings, and sometimes they would conduct these sales parties in the over in the fellowship room or something like that, and the women were gone at night for these sales parties and leaving the children and the husband home. And I began to question all that, and so when they invited me, I'd ask for a catalog. Just give me your catalog and I'll decide what I want. I don't need to attend the party. Why would they have to have a party? Because if they have to talk you into it and tell you all about it. Of course, now everything you can get all the information you want on video, on film. You don't have to go. And that's one reason I like doing what I'm doing right now, is because you don't have to leave your home to come and listen. And you don't really need me, but I can keep you company while you work and maybe guide you into becoming self-taught and autodidactic, figuring things out for yourself. Before I go today, I'm going to read a little bit of Brian Kozlowski's book, In Quest of Tea. No, I'm not. I'm going to read something I found. I've already read that, In Quest of Tea. But I thought, because some of you are interested in Jane Austen and history and that sort of thing, I have two good articles that I have found on Jane Austen's world on hair care, and one on drinking tea. Which one do you want to listen to first? The Lady's Maid, not hair care, but The Lady's Maid. I was going to inform you about that because it was from a book. This lady has printed it from a book, and the book is called The Duties of a Lady's Maid, with directions for conduct and numerous receipts for the toilette. Okay. Toilette meaning, personal grooming, hair care, and stuff like that. So I wanted to read to you about this because it would remind you of the homemaker. It's called The Lady's Maid. According to the Woman's Domain, that was a book or a magazine, the position of the lady's maid was one of the best in the female hierarchy of servants. Now, we all know we are in a hierarchy of servants because we are the hostess of our own homes. Most of us manage the money, manage the income, we manage all the appointments, we're the social director, we are the family archivist, we keep track of the relatives, and we keep track of all the special days, birthdays, anniversaries. We know when it's time for a new screen door. We know when something needs to be repaired. We know when something's wrong with the washing machine. We are in a really big, responsible position. And it will remind you of this lady's maid. And it's not to say that our family is all lazy and we're doing everything, but we're also training them we all work together to keep the household going. Most of her day was spent above stairs working in her lady's dressing room. She frequently accompanied her lady on travels and visits, a privilege not accorded to many. In public, she was expected to dress fashionably in clothes that were tasteful, but not as fine as her mistresses. Better yet, she was chosen by her mistress and employed directly by her. The Complete Servant, written in 1825, mentions that the business of the lady's maid is extremely simple but little varied. The book's authors describe the lady's maid's duties as: she is generally to be near the person of the lady and to be properly qualified for her situation. Her education should be superior to that of ordinary females, particularly in needlework and the useful and ornamental branches of acquirements. Now, we find that being homeschoolers, that's a big education. That's a very thorough education. And so I was going to teach you a word, but I forgot the word I was going to teach you was untoward. Untoward. And I will just, since it goes along with the propriety of a lady's maid and everything, I'll look that up and I will tell you what it means. Untoward. Because we ran across this in the old books a lot, and it's in the Bible too. Unexpected and inappropriate or inconvenient. So that's what untoward means. And what is untoward behavior? It means difficult to guide, manage, or work with. Unruly. Marked by trouble or unhappiness. That's what the cornerist is. They're untoward. Teach your children not to corner people. And you can put on a little skit and do a kind of a hands-on learning thing. I forget what we would call them, but role playing, you pretend, you make a little script, and you pretend that you're the untoward, rude person, and you've cornered someone and they can't get away. And you show the wrong way to get away. First of all, you've got the person that's untoward or rude, and then you've got the person that's trying to get away, and you need to show the wrong thing to say and the wrong thing to do, and then show the right way to get away. And so I think that that's important, and so I'm going to go on to the lady's maid here. She should be peculiarly neat and clean in her person, and dress is better than trying to be just attractive. And in her temper she should be cheerful, studying her lady's disposition. Now, I need to remind all young people at home, especially those who have gotten an aversion to water, to taking a shower, that you should take a shower every day, because when you're young, you sweat a lot, you start to smell a lot, and change your clothes every day. Because if you want, a lot of you want to intermingle with the public, be a little more social, maybe in church, or even get a job with someone, helping someone, looking after someone. You have got to not be offensive. And I don't know what the aversion to water is these days, but I have seen people that just do not want to take a shower. And I've heard that they have, if you leave it too long and you don't clean up, after a while you're afraid of the water. And I don't understand how that would be unless you had a very feeble mind. But that's also untoward, to not be clean. Young people especially should love water. They should be happy to take a shower in the morning, shower at night, just whenever they want, you know. Water should be something that they like. Keep clean. It will be her business to dress the lady, and she should learn to be perfectly ever studying to manifest good taste, to find the suitable decoration for the dress that goes with her habits, her complexion, and her age. So here is a list of skills in the book that the lady's maid is expected to have, and this is where I think you will think it's very much like the homemaker. Artificial flowers, you know, how to arrange artificial flowers. Taste in forms of dress. Taking care of the hair care. How to mend. Doesn't that sound familiar? And listen to this. Isn't this very much like the homemaker? A lady's maid had no set work hours. Her attention was devoted to her mistress's comforts and whims. This left her with little time. Her schedule was erratic and changed at the last minute to accommodate unexpected house guests or family trips. Doesn't that sound familiar? So during the day, she accompanied her mistress while shopping or walking, and then in the evening, she helped to close up the house. So here's another list of behavior for the lady's maid, duties of the lady's maid. And they don't have it, the book isn't written out here, but here is the list in the contents. And one is regarding religion. I'd be interested to know what that says. Honesty, diligence, and economy. Attention, you know, all those things, those are character qualities we must study in homeschooling. So if I homeschool you, I'll want you to know what the word diligence means. Good temper and civility. That's what it's going to take if you get cornered. Good temper and civility. I'd really like to see how that would be done in a military, to see what would happen if someone in the military got cornered, what he would do. Confidence in keeping family secrets. You know, young people, and even you ladies, you don't go around telling people personal things about your family. You don't say, I had to get after my son today for leaving his clothes in the bathroom. You just don't reveal anything like that that brings down the noble image of your family in any way. Amusements. Vulgar or correct speaking. That's a good one. That's part of homeschooling. Change of place, like when you have to move. And also they had a chapter on courtship for the lady's maid. In between caring for her mistress, she was expected to mend her clothes, remove spots, iron. By the way, that spot remover that you get at the fabric stores, grandma something or everything, that stuff works. You squirt it on wherever the spot is, and you let it set for a while, and it lifts it. And then you're really surprised when it washes right out. She's expected to mend her clothes, remove spots, iron, make poultices, lotions, and cosmetics. So they used to make their own cosmetics. But you know, does this not sound like the homemaker? Removing spots, ironing. She also is a hairdresser, a cleaner, a supervisor of other servants, a seamstress, and a companion, all rolled in one. Well, now that just sounds like the homemaker, doesn't it? And the mother. In other words, she had no free time except for the few days and hours a month allotted to her. Well, what you have to do, ladies, is what I mentioned when I first came on the broadcast, was take time out every day to relax. There's a little mini vacation going on. Go and refresh yourself, paint your lips back on or something, or change your dress, take a shower, do what you want, do some exercises, do something luxurious, and I guess as long as it's not fattening, right? And to have many vacations in your mind in the home, so that you don't have to, quote, get away from it all, because you can create an atmosphere in your home where it is getting away from it all. Have you ever come home from having to be out there doing all your errands and your shopping, and you come home and, oh, you're so glad to be home, because that's your refuge. So that's the way to create a holiday at home. Save yourself some money too. So the complete servants list in the lady's maid's exhaustive duties. Morning. Her first business in the morning will be able to see the housemaid has made a fire and properly prepared the lady's dressing room and lays out all of her clothes. Well, you know, we do that for our children. When the lady's bell rings, she attends to the dressing room and combs her hair for in the morning. Well, I know people who have families of girls, and they all dress each other's hair. They comb it and brush it for each other and then braid it. It's so nice. We used to do that. She folds and puts away her laundry, her night clothes, cleans her combs and brushes, and cleans up the vanity table. You know, we could learn something from this. We could do this, like we just need more to do, don't we? And noon and afternoon. About 1 o'clock, the family generally takes their lunch, and the servants their dinner. After this, she is again summoned to attend her lady. It is her business to see that the housemaid keeps up the fires and keeps the rooms in perfect order. Well, see, that's what we do. We make sure the children attend to their responsibilities. Yeah. Previous to her mistress's retiring for the night, she will have taken out the night clothes and aired them well, and she will not only now, but at times, carry up hot water for washing. You know, we have these old metal pans, you know, like they used to wash their face in, and someday we're going to do a day at home. Back in the day, you know, before running water, and wash in their room with a pitcher of water, and we're going to have so much fun with that. She will carefully examine all her clothes, press them, and do what is necessary that needs to be done to them before she folds them and puts them away. She may bring her work to her and sit with her and read to her. Well, doesn't that sound like a homeschool mother? During a lady's maid free time, she will be required to make tea and coffee for the drawing room company. So yeah, we have free time, but yeah, let's make a pot of tea. At her leisure, practice reading aloud from the best author, as it is important to acquire a proper style and manner of reading in all the varieties of poetry or prose. Yeah. And she cannot have avoiding the dull monotony of the schoolgirl and the formal affectation of the pedant, but following nature as her guide in all that appertains to emphasis, modulation, and delivery. I have talked about that a lot when I'm talking to young children, is that you've got to have inflection in your voice, and inflection on different syllables of a word. So, yeah, then it goes into needlework. She lays out and prepares the several articles for dinner or evening dress, and afterwards employs herself at needlework in her own room. After years of service, she hoped that her loyal and attentive companionship would be rewarded in her old age. Sadly, this was not always the case, and Mrs. John Dashwood, in Sense and Sensibility, would bring her own lady's maid in place of the widow Dashwood's loyal maid servant. This is really important as a homemaker, that you make sure that that you're setting in place something that will make you non-burdensome on someone. For example, a very good investment would be your health. If you can stay healthy, then there's less chance that you would have to be looked after by children or grandchildren. And not that they wouldn't want to do it, but we want to stay as strong and independent. My goal is I'm going to take care of all of them. Because, you know, young people, they're just not very smart, and they're all falling apart and everything. So I'm going to be taking care of them. And but then even with money, you have to figure out how you're going to lay up something for yourself so that you can take care of yourself, and you won't have to go to a place that you don't want to go involuntarily. It talks about how people had been so dedicated as ladies' maids and yet got nothing in return, and there was, you know, they did not have any kind of home to go to afterwards, after giving their whole life to this one family. And so I will read about Sarah Neal next time, that's in this book that's online here, and maybe next time I talk to you. And so until then, ladies, I hope you will. What is that? I'll just read you what I just learned, a different phrase. I always tell you to stay close to Christ, and I found this phrase in Jude verse 21. Keep yourselves in the love of God. So that's what I want you to do till I see you again. And I hope that this has been in some way beneficial to you, not too aggravating. Don't let yourself get cornered, and think of ways to outwit the cornerist. So I'll talk to you later, ladies. I love you. Bye.